Welcome to these TradeMalta webinars. With us for the session of today, we have Dr. JJ Gatt. I'm really looking forward to this discussion on artificial intelligence and how being digital is really becoming essential for any company taking internationalization seriously.
Let's define what artificial intelligence is. Just a few months ago, I was asked by my son's school to give a talk about artificial intelligence to 6-year-olds. How do you explain a complex technology function like artificial intelligence to 6-year-olds? And it's not an easy process. And if you look at this chart, which I'm showing now, which is called language acquisition norms, it explains at which age the human brain understands which language concepts. And as you certainly picked out already, you'll see that both the word artificial and the word intelligence are understood several years after age 6. So how was I going to define AI for kids? So it's like when you make a computer with a little brain. You help it to learn by giving it words, and if the computer hears these words, let's say these inputs, it can quickly answer new questions on the same vein. But when I was preparing for this school talk about artificial intelligence, it suddenly hit me that speaking to kids and defining artificial intelligence for kids is no different to defining artificial intelligence for CEOs, for politicians, for boards. Everything needs to be explained in clear and simple terms. In fact, it is our duty to remove the hype around AI and break it down into very basic concepts. And in fact, the following week after this event at the school, I had a debate with the former Prime Minister of Greece, Dr. George Papandreou, and I essentially repeated the exact same definition. Let's move to the eastern neighbor of Cyprus. Pygmalion is a legendary Cypriot figure. He's a sculptor, right? You'll see him in orange in this picture on the right. Now, the poet Ovid, around 2,000 years ago, recounts how Pygmalion declared that he was just not interested in woman whatsoever. So he sculpted this very beautiful woman. He wished that this statue would become human, would change into his bride so he could marry her. And indeed, Venus granted his wish, and he did marry her. This is the rendition by Rodin, of course, which is at the Met, of the same event, right? Pygmalion and Galatea, which is the name of the statue of his bride. Galatea is essentially ancient artificial intelligence, right? She's essentially non-organic material, right? Marble, crafted by humans, and in the end, functions almost like a human being. It's like when you get a computer, make it seem like it's got a tiny brain, so it can itself take certain decisions or answer certain questions. Let's zoom forward from Pygmalion and Ovid, and let's start moving closer to the year 2000. So this is 1997, and it's New York, right? It's a contemporary story, and it's the first time where IBM's Deep Blue supercomputer, right, the first fragment of AI, if you wish, that we had, beat the reigning chess grandmaster, a guy called Garry Kasparov, as this 1997 Newsweek cover ominously explained. So let's now jump forward 20 years into the present day, and let's look at the impact that this technology and this artificial intelligence has in the business world and the social world that we live in today. And let's go back full circle to sculpture, right? We spoke about Ovid and Pygmalion 2,000 years ago. So what you're seeing on screen right now is a sculpture called Deo. This, Joe, is the first piece of art which was entirely created by artificial intelligence. The AI tool understood the means of production, the means of inspiration, and created this particular form of art, which opens a very interesting discussion about creativity. Is AI creative? And this is an important point for us to touch on, not simply because of the economic impact of creativity, right? But it's also about thinking that creativity is a derivative state of consciousness. So saying that AI is creative is attributing a large amount of cognitive ability to this tool. We all know the famous Alan Turing, the most important computer scientist in Britain, who always said that the question of creativity can be reduced to this: can a computer surprise us? Well, if Alan Turing were alive and if he had to see this sculpture, I would certainly say yes, this sculpture does surprise us, does interest, and therefore does show that AI can combine concepts into a new form of art, which is, at least to some extent, surprising.